Quadratic equation. So what the quadratic equation is used for is it's actually used in physics. And it's actually used to determine height and distance of an object that is launched. So it's actually really pretty cool. A lot of people say, well, why do I have to learn the quadratic equation? Well, if you decide to do more education, physics might be a class that you will get into, especially if you want to do something engineering. And the quadratic equation is used. So let's just demonstrate what it is. This is what it looks like. It's usually written like x equals, and then this is what you have. Okay. So a lot of times people can be quite confused by it. I want to read it to you, and I'm going to point out a couple of items. This says the opposite of. So the opposite of B. This says plus or minus. The squared root of taking the B and squaring it, subtracting 4 times an A and a C, and you take all of that and you divide it by 2 times A. So I'm going to read it again to you. The opposite of B, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C, all divided by 2 times A. So again, what this is used for is it's used in physics to figure out if I launch an object into the air, how high will it go, and where will it land? So you have your start, your height, and your drop. And that's what it's for. So what you're going to have is you're going to have 2 items. X equals, well, X is talking about, if we haven't gotten there yet, but we're talking about graphing on the coordinate plane, where this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. And when you're talking about this quadratic equation, what it's doing is actually it can tell me if I start, my height, and my fall. It gives me it gives me a couple of pieces of items. It gives me this x, where it starts on the x-axis, where it ends on the x-axis, and it's a vertex. Its height. So let's go ahead and demonstrate. So a lot of times people are like, oh my God, that's a lot of information. It is a lot. And I want to try to keep it simple for you because a lot of times our students, they're not going to be taking a physics class after this. What they're doing is just trying to get the information they need so that they can complete the GED and then maybe go on to at Austin Community College, we offer lots of certificates and things that you can do. So a lot of times students don't need this extra mathematics or physics to get into these certificate programs. So let's demonstrate a couple of things, and I want to point out a couple. So the A, B, and C. Okay, let me talk about the A, B, and C. You'll see that throughout this whole equation. You're like, well, where is that information located? Or how do you know what A, B, and C is? What are those things? Well, those are coming from these coefficients in a trinomial. So let's talk about this. So when we see something like this is actually a trinomial. I'm going to rewrite it for you. So it's going to say 2x squared minus 2x plus 1. Okay. The A, B, and C, they actually come from the coefficients that are listed in this. So let's point them out. The A is coming from the coefficient where the x squared is located. So this is the x squared, and I'd say, well, what's the coefficient? I'd say, oh, it's a 2. So the a is a 2. That means every time I see a in this equation, I'm going to replace it with the number 2. The b. The b comes from just the variable by itself. It's a negative 2. So the b is the coefficient negative 2. Every time I see b, I'm going to write negative 2. The c, it comes from this constant, this number that's just here all by itself. This is the c. It's a positive 1. So every time I see c, I'm going to write 2. So let's go through. The a is coming from the term that is squared. The b is coming from the variable just the singular by itself. And the c is from the number left at the end. So what we're going to do now is we're going to rewrite the quadratic equation, and then we're going to replace the a's with 2, the b's with negative 2, and the c's with a positive 1. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this. Now, this takes a lot of space. So when you're doing this, it's quite a lot. So before we do this, let's go through the lesson of just identifying what's A, B, and C before we worry about, well, how do I replace and rewrite? So let's look at this next one. Can you identify the A term? If you said the A term is a negative 8, I agree. It's coming from the term that's squared, the x squared, and that is a negative 8. What's the B term? Did you say 3? I agree. It's a 3. What's the C term? Did you say negative 7? I agree. Negative 7. Let's try that again. Look at this one. What's the A? Negative 3. What's the B? 7. What's the C? Negative 2. Good job.